Guess you don't count. That was the last thing my sister, Alara, said to me. The most beautiful wedding in Lake Como, Italy, champagne, silk, and crystal bowls floating with orchids. My own sister, the golden child, had personally arranged the seating chart to put me, Anya, in the hallway. Not just a quiet table, but a small folding chair by the service doors, right next to the discreetly placed trash bins. The air in that cold marble hallway smelled like lilies and industrial bleach. I could hear the DJ inside the glass ballroom counting down to the first dance. I tightened my grip on the small, intricately carved box I'd driven 3 hours from Milan to deliver, smoothed my wine-colored dress, and felt every slight of the last 30 years compress into that one devastating sentence. My mother, Diana, adjusted her pearls and looked right past me. My father simply looked away. They were already inside, basking in Alara's light, confirming exactly where they believed I belonged. But they had miscalculated. They wanted tears. They wanted a scene. They wanted the validation of my anger. I gave them nothing. No argument, no tears. I stood up slowly from that humiliating chair and walked out into the crisp evening air of Lake Como. 5 minutes later, the ballroom went quiet and a scream cut the room in half. If you've ever felt betrayed by family, you know this pain. This is a story about silent vengeance and justice. If you value seeing quiet people win, please like and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from in the comments. This is how the daughter who was always fine finally found her freedom, and how one honest gift shattered a picture-perfect world. Let me take you back to where this pattern of neglect truly began. The Italian air was sharp that evening, the kind that smelled of cypress trees, old stone, and obscene wealth. Alara had chosen the Belvedere estate for its impossible European charm. It was the kind of place you only saw on postcards, a shimmering glass ballroom overlooking the dark, peaceful water, strung with orchids and candles. Every table inside shimmered under the chandeliers. Every table, except mine. I had driven up alone, 3 hours from my small apartment in Milan, replaying Mom's final, familiar text. "Please, Anya, no drama today. It's Alara's day." That was all I ever was to them. An instruction. A warning label. Don't make noise. Don't take up space. Don't remind anyone there's another daughter. Growing up, we were the walking cliché you see in old family albums, the golden child and the quiet one. Alara had ribbons, trophies, and the spotlight. I, the independent one, had report cards no one looked at. When Alara cried, she got rescued. When I fixed things, I got ignored. My mother, Diana, always called me the easy one. My father called me independent. Both words meant the exact same thing. Invisible was convenient. I was the quiet, methodical one, the software engineer in Boston who had built her career from the ground up, the one who quietly took care of the unexpected bills. For years, I had been the silent architect of their comfort, but never the resident of their attention. The last time I felt that weight lift was 3 years ago, during a quiet Thanksgiving. Alara was in Portugal with a new boyfriend, and for once, the air in the house felt light. Mom asked me to grab an old photo album from her vanity drawer. Instead, I found it, her small brown leather journal. The edges were soft, worn down from years of use and devotion. I flipped through it, just curious enough to cross the line, until I realized the crushing pattern. Every page began the same way. Alara's first day of kindergarten, Alara's favorite meal, Alara's college acceptance. Not a single line about me, not my name, not my birthdays, not my achievements. When I asked my mother about it, she smiled that dismissive, patronizing smile, like I had asked the silliest question in the world. "You never needed the attention, honey," she said. "You were always fine." That night, I learned there are 2 kinds of forgotten, being lost and being erased. I thought about that journal as I walked toward the ballroom now, my heels clicking sharply on the polished marble floor. The memory was a physical weight, pressing against my sternum. Through the tall glass doors, I could see them posing for the photographer. My mother, Diana, in her champagne silk. My father, stiffly straightening his tie. And Alara, glowing in impossible white, the image of perfection she had rehearsed her entire life. She looked up. Her eyes found mine. For a flicker of a second, she saw me, and then she smiled the same empty, polite smile people give to a store clerk or a waiter. They will forget the moment they turn away. I wasn't her sister. I was a background fixture. A frantic wedding coordinator intercepted me with her clipboard and earpiece, her movements sharp and rehearsed. "Miss Hayes? Anya?" she asked, quickly checking her chart. I confirmed. Her polite, professional smile faltered immediately when she found my name, Anya Hayes, written in small print at the very bottom. You're listed for hallway seating. I laughed. A short, sharp sound. I waited for her to correct the obvious mistake, to apologize for the oversight. She didn't. Hallway seating, she repeated, guiding my attention with a practiced hand toward a small, white folding table tucked awkwardly against the wall, near the swinging service doors. It's out here, for when the inner room gets too crowded. From that spot, I could see the entire dazzling ballroom. Every sparkle, every laugh, every perfectly curated moment. But there was a wall between us. A literal glass partition, and the unbreachable wall of their indifference. I placed the intricately carved box, my quiet, carefully chosen gift, onto the table. Inside, Elara was raising her glass for a photo. Diana was smoothing her veil. Outside, I sat in the cold draft and repeated the lie I had told myself for years, the mantra of the unloved, it's fine, you don't need them. But the truth was no longer fine. It was pressing against my chest, heavy and solid. Maybe I didn't need their approval, but that didn't mean they had the right to treat me like I had never existed at all. I tried to disappear into the background, as always, but the hallway was a service corridor, not a quiet corner. Staff came and went, wheeling bins of melting ice, laughing under their breath. Every time the service door swung open, I caught flashes, the glittering chandeliers, the swaying dresses, and most painfully, my mother's hand resting on Elara's shoulder, a crown of absolute approval. Then, the laughter shifted, moving closer. I looked up and saw Elara walking toward me, bouquet in one hand, the voluminous train of her white gown trailing behind her like smoke. She stopped just short of the doorway, her reflection doubled in the glass. Two versions of her, the adored idol inside and the cold executioner outside. Well, she said, tilting her head, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Looks like they finally figured out where you belong. I simply blinked, my eyes fixed on hers. What's that supposed to mean, Elara? She offered that familiar half-smile, the predatory one I'd known since childhood, the smile she used right before stealing the spotlight or delivering the final blow. Guess you don't count, she hissed. The words landed so softly, I almost missed how lethal they were. Guess you don't count. It was spoken like an equation, like I was a miscalculation, a number to be subtracted. I said nothing. My throat went dry, the specific, painful dryness that comes from swallowing decades of pride and hurt. Behind her, the photographer called out, "Bride, we need you back in the shot." She didn't move. She wanted me to react, to cry, to beg, to validate her cruelty. I just looked at her, long enough for the perfect, brittle smile on her face to twitch. "You know," I said quietly, my voice perfectly steady, "there's always been space for both of us. You're the one who keeps shrinking it." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, please, Anya, not everything's about you. This is my day." She took a step closer, voice hardening. "You could at least pretend to be happy for once." I let out a small laugh, the sound thin and dry, like air escaping from a hidden crack. "You made sure I couldn't even sit in the same room as you. What exactly am I celebrating, Elara?" For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, uncertainty, maybe even fear of exposure. Then she lifted her chin, recovering her facade. "You always twist things. Maybe Mom was right. You make everything difficult, Anya." The mention of my mother hit harder than she knew, reminding me of that brown journal. Every page filled with Elara's life, and none of mine. "I'm not difficult," I responded. "You just never liked that I see things the way they are." She rolled her eyes, dismissing me with a wave of her hand. "You sound just like Dad, pathetic and bitter. Face it, Anya, nobody needs your approval. Not here, not ever." She turned on her heel, leaving a fading trail of expensive perfume and disdain. I watched her go, her heavy white gown brushing the floor. The familiar burn rose behind my eyes. But this time, it was different. It didn't hurt the same way. It felt cleaner. When the door closed behind her, I picked up the small, carved box from the table. The gift I'd spent hours selecting and meticulously wrapping. I traced the ribbon once, and then, with a slow, deliberate movement, I slipped it into my clutch bag. If they didn't want me inside, fine. But I wasn't leaving empty-handed, not this time. For a while, I just sat there in the silence of the marble hallway, my fingers pressed against the cool, smooth edges of the box. I could still hear the muffled beat of music leaking through the ballroom doors. It was supposed to be the moment of their first dance, the perfect, cinematic picture of a lifetime. I imagined my mother Diana, dabbing a tear, my father clapping awkwardly, and Alara basking, the spotlight fixed solely on her. The same scene I had watched my whole life from the edges. But edges cut. I stood up slowly. My reflection caught in the glass panel, still composed, maybe even graceful if you didn't look too closely. Inside my clutch, the carved box felt heavier than it should. It wasn't just a present, it was proof, something quiet that could shatter the flawless image Alara had constructed out of lies. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been up in Boston when I ran into one of Alara's old coworkers. A harmless lunch turned into an ugly confession. Alara, it turned out, had been bragging for months about marrying Marcus not for love, but for leverage. She had boasted about how easy it was to manipulate Marcus, saying he was sweet but naive. Her exact words, chillingly, were, "A few fake tears and I get the house, the money, the last name." She'd laughed about it. My coffee went cold. I hadn't planned to use that information not until the humiliation of the folding chair by the trash bins. Before leaving the hallway entirely, I walked back toward the reception area near the ballroom entrance. The coordinator was distracted, fussing over some centerpieces. This was my opening. I pulled the small, intricately carved box from my bag. I slid it among the pile of large, shimmering gifts, placing it deliberately on top of the stack labeled "To Alara and Marcus." My handwriting was neat, the label a clean, stark white. Inside that small box, beneath the velvet padding, was a folded note and a printout of the messages her coworker had shown me, screenshots and transactional receipts of her betrayal. It wasn't a threat. It was just the undeniable truth. I took one final step back, straightening the flawless wine-colored dress. My heart was not racing. It was steady, beating with a cold, almost foreign calm. Then I turned and walked toward the exit. The Lake Como evening hit me with a clean, cold rush of air. The dark water shimmered, a mirror I didn't need anymore. I could hear the faint, muffled echo of applause behind me, cheering for a dance I no longer cared to watch. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I reached the parking lot, the crunch of gravel under my heels like punctuation to a finished sentence. No dramatic goodbye, no bitter speech, just the quiet, decisive closure of a car door. As I started the engine, I looked back once at the glowing windows, the silhouettes of my family moving behind the glass, and whispered to myself, not out of malice but pure fact, "Let the truth find its way." Inside the Belvedere estate, the laughter still floated above the music. A saxophone hit a soft, celebratory note. The crowd pressed in, admiring Alara and Marcus on the dance floor. Alara glowed in that heavy white gown, the picture of perfection she'd rehearsed since childhood. Marcus spun her once, twice, the camera flashes painting everything gold. From outside, the scene was sealed, flawless, and utterly unreal. Then, the small, carved box was opened. It happened near the gift table. A cousin, giddy with excitement, had gathered the presents, sorting ribbons for photos. Someone suggested, "Let's have them open one now, a spur-of-the-moment show for the guests." Alara turned, laughing, and spotted the lone, small, intricately carved box. She tugged the ribbon free. The paper fell away, the lid lifted, and inside lay the finality of the folded note. Her hand hesitated. "What's this?" Marcus leaned over, curious. The note slid loose, landing face up on the pristine white linen. His eyes caught the first line of the text screenshots before Alara could snatch them back. He frowned, scanning the text messages. A single sentence, cold and utterly transactional, stuck out. "He's so easy to handle. Cry a little and he buys anything I want." The music didn't stop immediately. It just thinned. The violinist stumbled, missing a beat. Alara's fingers shook violently. "This isn't... Someone's trying to..." Marcus didn't answer. He just kept reading page after page. Each line was worse than the last. Jokes about securing the prenup first, about moving his parents into the guest house once she was settled. The same cruel, practiced smirk she'd given me hours ago was now frozen on her face, brittle and entirely wrong. "Who sent this?" she hissed. Marcus's mother, Victoria, a woman known for her slow, unwavering authority, had been watching from across the room. When she heard the name Anya Hayes whispered by one of the bridesmaids, her expression hardened. "I think you should read the rest before you blame anyone, Alara," Victoria said, crossing the floor with slow certainty. "These came to me this morning, forwarded from a stylist you hired. Apparently they were in the wrong thread." Alara's face drained of all color. "That's not possible." "It's real, Alara." The dates match, Marcus said, his voice low and shaking with betrayal. He turned the final page. A photo of her text, "The house will be mine by Christmas." A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Phones came out. The photographer froze mid-shot. Elara lunged for the papers. "You can't show people that." Victoria stepped between them. "You showed it yourself, sweetheart." That was when the screaming started. Not loud at first, more like air leaving a body too fast. Elara stumbled back, the voluminous train of her gown catching under her heel. "No, you don't understand. He's lying. My sister, she did this." Marcus's jaw tightened. Anya didn't write those messages. She planted them. She's jealous. She's always. "Stop!" The single word cracked through the room like a whip. Marcus cut her off. "You did this. You humiliated her today, and you thought no one would ever see who you really are." Every face had turned toward them. The DJ lowered the volume. A child's voice asked, "Mom, what's happening?" Elara's perfect day was dissolving, and she couldn't hold it together anymore. She spun toward her parents. "Do something!" My mother, Diana, stood pale and stiff near the head table, her champagne glass trembling. My father looked only at the floor, lips pressed tight. For once, neither of them moved to defend her. "You knew," Marcus said quietly, his voice finally shaking now. "You knew exactly what you were doing." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded document, and set it on the table. "This is an annulment petition. I already signed it." Elara stared at the paper like it was a live wire. "You can't, Marcus. You can't humiliate me like this." "I'm not humiliating you," he said. "You did that yourself." Someone turned off the music entirely. The room fell into a silence so deep it buzzed. Then came the sound the guests would remember, crystal shattering as the frame, the one intended to hold their perfect photo, hit the stone floor. Elara's voice cracked. "She's behind this. Anya's behind all of it." Victoria exhaled slowly, watching the destruction. "Funny," she said, her voice dry and final. "The only thing your sister did was tell the truth." Outside, my car engine was idling, humming softly in the cold air. The glow from the ballroom windows flickered across the dark surface of Lake Como. I couldn't hear every word of the chaos, but I heard the scream. It came sharp and high, echoing across the water, followed by the dull thud of a chair tipping. It was the sound I'd waited my whole life to hear, not out of cruelty, but closure. Inside, Elara's mascara was streaking down her perfect, ruined face. "You'll regret this," she shouted, her voice breaking. Marcus simply turned away, his shoulders heavy. "No, Elara." "You will," he said. He walked off the dance floor, followed by Victoria, the crowd parting around them like a defeated tide. My mother, Diana, reached for Elara's arm. "Sweetheart, maybe we should step outside?" "Don't touch me!" Elara cried, pulling free. "You all wanted this. You never loved me enough." Her voice dissolved into ugly sobs. Then, my father spoke. Quietly, for the first time that night, or perhaps in decades. "You should apologize to your sister," he said. The words stunned everyone, even my mother. But Elara only laughed, a brittle, hysterical sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Apologize to her? She's not even family." My father shook his head slowly, the fatigue of years settling on his shoulders. "That's where you're wrong." He left it at that, turning away and following the rest of the crowd toward the exit. By the time the lights dimmed and the staff began sweeping broken glass from the floor, Elara sat utterly alone under the giant crystal chandelier. Her dress, once dazzling, now looked heavy and wrinkled. The bouquet had fallen beside her empty chair. The same hands that had pushed me away now clutched desperately at the air, searching for something to hold. She never saw me. I was already gone. Through the fogged car window, I watched as guests hurried out into the parking lot, their whispers trailing behind them. "It's all over social media already. Did you see his face?" "That poor girl?" "No, the other one, the sister." I didn't feel triumph, just quiet. I rested my hand on the steering wheel and thought about the hallway, the smell of lilies and bleach, the folding chair that squeaked when I sat, how it all started with a humiliating seat by the trash cans, and how it ended with the truth laid bare in front of everyone who had ever looked through me. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispers, "Now they see you." The lake went still again, glassy and calm. I turned the key, and my headlights washed over the gravel. I drove away from the sound of my sister's perfect world collapsing behind me. By the time I reached Boston, the sky was beginning to gray. My phone buzzed nonstop in the cup holder. 16 missed calls from Mom Diana. 3 from Dad, 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't check any of them. The quiet was worth more than any explanation. A new message appeared. Please answer, Anya. We didn't know. That was Diana. But she had known all along. Every time she told me to stay quiet, every time she laughed at Alara's jokes, every time she'd said, "You're fine." I put the phone face down and opened my laptop instead. A map of coastal towns in Maine blinked back at me. Somewhere I'd never been. I clicked book. A week by the water sounded like peace. They could keep their apologies, their explanations, their versions of the truth. I had mine now. For the first time in my life, silence didn't mean being unseen. It meant being free. The loudest revenge isn't a scream. It's the sound of your own footsteps leaving the room. They thought I'd always stay, waiting for their approval. But I don't beg for space at someone else's table. I build my own.